Good morning. I'm Rod Kemkus, member of your Board of Trustees here at Cedars Unitarian Universalist Church. Just a couple of announcements before we get started. They're all printed on the back of your order of service, but today we're having a special collection, and this is going to go to Kingston Cares. And then on July 4th, Sandy Spears is looking for volunteers to walk in the Bainbridge Island 4th of July parade to promote the protection of the southern resident orcas and salmon in our local waters. And so I have Fran, I think you would like to come up and make another announcement.
So your music committee has some ideas about how to expand the things that we, the kind of music we have. And we have had lengthy discussions about bringing non-hymns into our service. So we have lists of possible songs and debates about what to do. And today we are inaugurating that program for you with special music played by Rebecca Kim on her guitar with a song that she suggested, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I'll leave the surprise for you. Say it again.
They all have the words.
Oh, I didn't know that because I don't have the words. Where are the words? Excellent. No surprise. Okay. So that's what that's about. Okay, this is an inauguration of a program that you will hear in the future again. Thank you.
Long ago, I had a little pickup truck with a strange problem. Depressing the accelerator pedal would first become rough, and then the pedal would become stuck altogether. I had to turn the truck off at every stoplight to stop the engine from racing. I replaced the accelerator cable, and very quickly, the same problem developed again. I was talking to a mechanic, and he said that you can tell a lot by a system by what symptoms are shown when the system goes wrong. You can tell a lot about a system by what symptoms it displays when something goes wrong. It turned out that the electrical systems of my truck were somehow grounding through the accelerator cable and then melting the sheathing. A few weeks ago, I read a piece in the New York Times about a man with some form of dementia. It was written by his daughter, Cornelia Channing. There are some parts of it which are really funny, like when she opens by saying how her father started hiding bananas all around the house. He would put them in the dishwasher behind potted plants. She once found a bunch hanging from the shower head. Later, she describes a period of a year or so when her father would not stop saying the non-word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And she emphasized that she was not exaggerating when she said he would say this hundreds of times per day. The events that the author describes began when she was 10 years old and ended when she was 16 and her father died. Some of her perceptions are clearly pre-adolescent surliness, and she knows that, but she also recognized something deeper about the human brain. She says, he would frequently say mysterious and profound-sounding things. Once, while looking at a photograph of my sisters as children, he said, "These little squeaks look a lot like the people I used to be." We try to be rational. Our brains are complex systems constructed for other reasons. Come, let us worship.
Good morning. I'm Jenny Weaver. I am wearing a mask because a member of my family is ill, so I want to keep everybody safe. I am not ill. So forgive me if I sound a little bit muffled. What I have here today is a certificate of achievement that I earned in 2018. I got 100% in Math 107 at Olympic College. I think I'm going to frame this one. I printed it out, and I'm going to tell you why this is so important to me. This is the story of a narrative I wrote for myself unintentionally, and how I defied that self-imposed limitation and rose above it. From the age of 12 until 47, I told myself quite regularly that I was bad at math. When I was a kid, I loved math. I pretty much loved everything about school, honestly. I loved learning the times tables. In 6th grade, we could go out to recess as soon as we were done with our math worksheets, and I was often the first one done and out the door. But somewhere between 6th and 9th grade, I internalized the belief that I was bad at math. By 9th grade, I was lost. I managed to make it through high school math, but I didn't understand most of what I was doing. And the frustration and sense of defeat made me loathe and dread it. Also was very embarrassing. When I went to college for my Bachelor's of Arts in English, I was delighted that I would not have to take any college math if I took an extra 6 credits of science. I had solidified a narrative for myself. I was bad at math. Throughout my own children's youth, I had thoughts about going back to school to become a nurse, something I had wanted to do the first time around, but my fear of math kept me from even considering it. Things came to a head in 2017. I was 47, and I had decided it was now or never. I realized something had changed, something that had changed my life. I asked myself, what if I am not bad at math? What if I just needed another chance to try? Was I willing to fail at that? And what if I was had been telling myself a story, a narrative that was wrong. And so I decided that I was willing to give it a shot. So I went to Olympic College and I took a math placement exam. I will admit that after it was over, I went to my car and sobbed. It was so stressful. But the exam placed me exactly where I needed to be at about a high school algebra level. And so I enrolled in a math class and started where I had left off. I ended up taking 10 credits of math in one term, and I received 4.0s at the end of the term. I had rewritten my narrative. I was so proud of myself. I went on to earn a bachelor's degree in nursing, and I now practice as a registered nurse. I am not bad at math. I love math, and I love the memories I have of doing my math homework every night during that time and feeling elated when I got things right. I'm as proud of that term of intense math as I am of about anything. I was willing to start at the bottom and give it everything I had. It was a wonderful gift to myself. And so I dedicate the lighting of the chalice to the beauty of lifelong learning. I'm going to put this out here so anyone can come and observe my 100%. Please recite with me as printed in the order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we will all become the best that we can be. And now please rise as you are willing and able, and we will sing hymn number 1018, which is Come and Go With Me.
So for our Time for All Ages today, I have a little dialogue that I'm going to give to you. And it's based on this book by Daniel Milo. It's called Good Enough, The Tolerance for Mediocrity in Nature and Society. I'll set that here next to Jenny's display of non-mediocrity. So there are 3 friends on the African savanna. The 3 friends are Jackie the giraffe, George the giraffe, and Gerard the sloth. And Jackie says, "Hey guys, why do you think giraffes have such long necks?" And George the giraffe says, "It's an adaptation. We got it through natural selection because it confers to us an advantage. We can reach leaves on the trees and we can eat them. So we're better than all those short things." And Jackie says, "Well, you know, giraffes often eat off bushes that are like lower than shoulder level, and on top of that, they mostly eat off those in the dry season when food is scarce, and the only time that they're eating the leaves on the trees is in the wet season when food is not scarce. So why does this help convey some sort of advantage? Food is available like pretty much all the time." And Gerard the sloth, Gerard the sloth says, "Not only that, but when adults die from starvation, it tends to be the ones with the longest necks." George says, "Well, I've never heard that. That seems like a valid point." And then Gerard says, "And if necks are such an advantage, why don't we see more things that have long necks? Like, how come there's not like a variation of an elephant with a long neck, or a variation of a lion with a long neck? When something is really advantageous, like eyesight, you see that it's evolved multiple times in different creatures. Or flight, birds fly, insects fly, bats fly. That's a nice advantage to have, and it's evolved over and over again." And then Jackie says, "And not only that, the energy costs of having these really huge bodies are huge." And Gerard says, "Yeah, bigger hearts, you need bigger bones. Giraffes have the highest blood pressure of any creature on Earth, and subsequently much smaller brains." And George says, "You make a good point, Gerard, but you're a sloth. What are you even doing here on the savannah?" And Gerard says, "We creatures, ostriches, sloths, kangaroos, giraffes with complicated or poorly explained evolutionary histories, we really need to stick together." And Jackie says, "Okay, but another explanation for our long necks might be that sometimes males use them to fight. They take their long necks and they whip them around and whack each other with their super hard heads. So maybe it's like competing for females." George says, "That actually sounds like a good theory because neck lengths are actually sexually dimorphic. The males continue growing their necks after adolescence, but the females stop, even though it's a small difference." But then Gerard says, "From what I've heard, it's mostly younger, smaller males that are doing this fighting with their necks. It's actually called necking. It's mostly the younger, smaller males who are able to go necking, and it doesn't actually lead to an increased number of mates, and so that also doesn't really provide much of an advantage." But then George says, maybe it's exaptation. Our necks evolved for some reason, and now we're using them for some other reason that they weren't originally evolved for. And Gerard says, right, like feathers on the bird. They originally evolved for temperature control, and now they're used for flight. And Jackie says, or middle ear bones in humans, because they were originally evolved as jaw bones of our lizard ancestors, and now they're used for hearing. And George says, yeah, look at the wings of penguins. They originally evolved for flight, and now they're used for swimming. And Jackie says, I guess the narrative that explains our long necks is pretty complicated. And George says, yeah. And Gerard says, yeah. And the three friends lapse into reflective silence.
All right, so I guess I'm up. So I don't know if, hopefully enough of you got copies of the words. I didn't maybe make enough. Okay, there's still some in the back. So I am hoping that you will join me in this song. Just the chorus, if that feels more comfortable. But Reverend Zachary sang this song last year sometime, I think. Probably sounds familiar to you if you don't know it otherwise. Anyway, it's a great song. I am not a great guitar player, so we'll sort of see what happens. But there's a little arrow, and that means we're going to modulate. We're going to change our key. So anyway, here goes nothing. I spent a long time trying to get this one part, it's like I can't get the words to work, so we'll see what happens. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us, so lift me up to the light of change. There's a hurting in my family, there is sorrow in my town, there is a panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and
For our centering moment today, I'd like to offer the poem Information by David Ignatow. This tree has 2,075,000 leaves. Perhaps I missed a leaf or two, but I do feel triumphant, having persisted in counting by hand, branch by branch, and marked down on paper with each total. Adding them up was a pleasure I could understand. I did something on my own that was not dependent on others, and to count leaves, it is not less meaningful than counting stars, as the astronomers are always doing. They want the facts to be sure they have them all. It would help them to know whether the world is finite. I discovered one tree that is finite. I must try counting the hairs on my head, and you too. We could swap information.
On many Sundays, we have our honoring of joys and sorrows. This part of the service is not going to be broadcast or recorded. If you have a joy or a sorrow that you would like to share, please come up and pour a little water for a joy so that we may share it with you. And if you have a sorrow, please place a stone so that we can help you bear your burden. When we share gifts, we are giving of ourselves. Each month, we have a special collection that Cedars organizes with a need in the community, a nonprofit in the community. And today, our special collection is Kingston Cares. And I would like to introduce Catherine Farrell, who will tell us a little bit about the service that Kingston Cares provides.
Good morning, and thank you very much for having me here. Hopefully you can hear me okay?
Yeah, put it a little,
So close.
little closer to you.
A little closer. This better? Okay, thank you. All right, as already stated, I'm Catherine Farrell with Kingston Cares. I am the board vice president. I've been with Kingston Cares now it's going into my second year. So I'm very excited to be retired and now doing some good work for our community. So in that good work, I want to thank everyone for inviting Kingston Cares here today and for choosing us for your special collection this month. We do appreciate your support. For those of you who don't know, Kingston Cares is a 501(c)(3) nonprofit. We're located in Kingston, and we've been in existence since 2013. So we've been doing 11 years of good work. We started when community members saw someone living in a tool shed, a garden shed, at the Village Green Community Center. And so they noticed that this is really a need. You know, we have folks that aren't housed, and we also have folks that are food insecure. So what can we do to support that? So with that, our community members got together and started the severe weather shelter in Kingston, where before folks had to go all the way to Bremerton. And we know that folks who are housing and food insecure probably can't get to places very, very easily. So we still operate that severe weather shelter today from November 1st through March 31st. And it's totally supported by our volunteers and community members. So very, very excited. We have, to go on a little bit more about our programs, we have 5. We have the Severe Weather Shelter, of course, that I spoke about. Also, our Food for Kids program, which last year we had many members from Cedars come over and help volunteer to pack up the food for children. And we provide 2 bags of food for each child in need in North Kitsap School District that has registered with us. And we not only pack it, but we deliver it to them. We also partner with the Port Campbell S'Klallam tribe, so they are a big supporter for us as well. And we do provide many, many meals to them as well. So right now, we're getting ready to kick off our summer program. So we do this once a week on Mondays for 7 weeks throughout the summer. And we will be starting on Monday, July the 8th. So that's coming up very soon. Very excited about that. So I know that Patricia has been with us now. She came to observe, and she just keeps coming back. And then she came back with many folks from this congregation. So do so appreciate your support. And I know that Patricia's coming back again for 4 times this summer. And I think that there'll be some volunteers coming from the entire group. So very excited to have you visit us. The other program that we have is our community meal. So once a month, on the second Friday of every month, we host a free community meal for anyone who needs a meal or would just like to come and be part of our community and gather and enjoy yourself, either indoors or you can take it away if you'd like. Some folks are unable to sit with others, due to, immunosuppressed, disorders and that sort of thing. So we do provide a meal for them to take. Right now, we are up to 185 meals that we provide every month. These are provided by local community organizations that register with us and just go to the Village Green and start cooking. and serve those meals. So we're very excited, and Kingston Care sponsors that. So we fund these folks to do it if they don't have funds to do it themselves. We do have another program, which is our Little Pantry. It is a little pantry, as I stated, that is right outside of a business center in Kingston, across from our post office. We stock that very many times during the week. So it's, stocked with shelf-stable items, snacks, drinks, so that folks can walk by and pick up something if they're in need. A lot of times we have a lot of the children that stop by and get a snack bar, that sort of thing, or a drink. So very glad that that's out there for our community. Just finished stocking it myself this week. We are also very excited to announce that we have been working very closely with affordable housing groups in Kitsap County. We were given several years back a gift of property, which we sold and invested those funds, and we are in negotiations right now with someone who is selling a home and a property that we are planning to purchase to eventually rebuild and have many multi-units in there for affordable housing. So very, very excited about that, and we're hoping to get those documents all completed by the end of July. So again, very excited. What else can I say about us? We're just out there in the community, putting our word out. We're always looking for volunteers, new board members. I have some brochures, I have cards if you'd like to contact me directly. But again, I really appreciate being here today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine. Would the ushers please come forward and bring the baskets to the congregation? Thank you for your generous gifts, which will help make lives easier for those living in Kingston and Kitsap County to meet their needs.
I think it was sometime in 2009 that a few senators in the United States Senate read a particular paper on climate change and concluded that the paper contradicted itself and that the experts didn't know what they were talking about. The senators' argument went something like this. First, the paper examines ice cores taken in Antarctica that give us a partial history of the climate going back maybe 10,000 years. When looking at the ice cores, analysis seems to show that first temperatures would rise, and then carbon dioxide levels would rise, and then temperatures would fall, and carbon dioxide levels would fall. It seemed to show that carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere trailed temperature changes. Then the paper looks at the CO2 that is in the atmosphere now, and it concludes that it is causing temperature rises. So the senators say these two things contradict each other, experts claiming that climate change is caused by the CO2 are either ignorant or being disingenuous. And the funny thing is, in a way, the senators are right. The paper does say both of these things, and on the surface, they contradict each other. About that time, my wife Arlene and I were participating in an online community focused on the obscure sport of indoor rowing. Some might say that the community was obsessed with indoor rowing, but not so much that there wasn't also time to discuss the findings of the senators who read the climate change paper and who had repudiated all of its claims. Since I am someone who tends to believe the experts, I thought that the conclusions of the senators seemed suspicious. So I read the paper myself. To be fully transparent, I am not a climate scientist. Professionally, I am a software engineer with an education in mathematics. However, at the time at work, I was investigating certain problems in logistics and reading a bunch of fairly technical material in the field of operations research. I'm used to reading technical papers. And having spent a fair amount of time in school, I also think I'm pretty good at telling the difference between things that I understand and things that I don't understand. So again, I read the paper on climate change that was being discussed in both the rowing forums and the United States Senate. In preparation for today, I actually searched for the paper in question, but was unable to find it. But as I remember, the argument in the paper went something like this. Step 1, analysis of the ice cores showed exactly what the senators said they showed, that temperatures would rise, carbon dioxide levels would rise. Temperatures would fall, carbon dioxide levels will fall. Carbon dioxide trails temperature changes. Step 2, computer models of the climate were created. They are very, very complicated, and I don't even remotely understand the models. But the scientists concluded that their models were good. They were good models of the climate when the models predicted the same pattern of rising and falling temperatures, rising and falling carbon dioxide levels. They used the data from the ice cores to calibrate their computer models. And then step 3, massive amounts of CO2 were dumped into the atmosphere in the computer models, and the computer models showed that the climate became more chaotic with a net increase in worldwide temperatures. The CO2 that was added to the atmosphere in the model can be interpreted as the CO2 that human beings have suddenly added in real life by digging up lots of partially decayed organic material and setting it on fire. There was one particular person in the rowing forum with whom I discussed this in depth. His name was Sebastian. That wasn't really his name. I'm saying that was his name to hide his identity. At one point, I spent hours reverse engineering an outline from the paper. It was more detailed than I just gave you. It was maybe 8 or 9 steps. I showed where each point was made, and I directly quoted the applicable sections. I was very pleased with my work. I felt after this outlining process that I really understood this paper. And this probably won't surprise you, but I was unable to convince Sebastian that the argument in the paper was not actually the contradictory argument that the senators had put forth. I was never able to determine exactly what part of the argument he disputed. He was never very specific. Sebastian just said that when he read the paper, he interpreted it the same way that the senators interpreted it. It was contradictory. And then he said, we have to agree to disagree. You know, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. Now, if you're like me, you find this story very frustrating. Certainly, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but doesn't humility guide us to conclude that our own opinions are usually irrelevant? And I find it unjustifiable to casually disregard the work of scientists and researchers. I don't mean to suggest there is no way of attacking climate change literature or attacking this paper in particular. For example, in the paper, you could attack the worldwide conclusions drawn from the ice core data. Or you could say that the computer model was overfitted. Or you could say that the results of one computer model don't meet the repeatability requirements of the scientific community. The supposed contradiction that was exposed by the political community is really weak. But maybe this is the problem. I have particular standards, and my disagreement with my friend Sebastian isn't a question about this one paper, it's a question about epistemology. What do we know, and how can we know it? One thing that I do know is that epistemology is really hard. In the mid-14th century BCE, Plato wrote one of his Socratic dialogues, this one called Theaetetus, in which Socrates poses the question, what is knowledge? Over the course of the dialogue, Theaetetus proposes 3 different answers. First, knowledge is perception. Second, knowledge is true opinion. Third and finally, knowledge is true opinion combined with definition or rational explanation. Going into these a little more, the first of these, knowledge is perception, Socrates raised multiple objections. The primary objection is about the subjectivity of perception. Socrates says, well, then according to this theory, it follows that things exist for each person, which that person perceives, and he perceives them, so they are for him. This is the ultimate relativism of truth. Socrates also says, but we often perceive things that are not, as we were saying just now, as in dreams and illnesses, and many other cases of delusion. So another piece of the argument against perception as knowledge is that perception is prone to error and illusion, which suggests that if knowledge were perception, it would include falsehoods and be unreliable. Socrates also dismisses the second of these statements. Knowledge is a true opinion. Here, knowledge is 2 things. It's both true and it's an opinion. It's believed. And Socrates says these things seem necessary for knowledge, but they don't seem sufficient. Socrates says, when a man has a true opinion about something but does not have a reason, his soul is in a condition in which it possesses the truth about a thing but knows nothing about it. This evolution in thought leads to the idea that knowledge is a true belief, which is also justified. Unfortunately, Socrates argues against this as a definition as well. The difficulty is discovering what qualifies as justification for an opinion. Socrates argues that this is insufficient, knowing that if you know just about the elements of an argument trying to make a justification, then you only know about the elements and you don't know about the thing itself. On the other hand, if an account consists of being able to distinguish the object of knowledge from everything else, Socrates argues that it's circular because you have to know enough about the object to differentiate it from everything else, which assumes that you have the knowledge that you're trying to show that you have in the first place. In this context, it seems circularity is bad. If Socrates and Plato have this much trouble, what are the rest of us to do? A couple of weeks ago, I read an article in the New York Times making the case that the virus that causes COVID-19 originated in a lab. It was leaked out of a lab. For me, this theory became somewhat personal when I last spoke to my father, and this is what he wanted to talk about. He wanted to talk about how Dr. Anthony Fauci should go to prison because from the very beginning, he knew that it was leaked from a lab, and he's been doing all this work to cover it up. Actually, this incident with my father is the basis for everything that's happening here today. The other theory, of course, is that the origin of the virus is zoonotic. It comes from animals. It jumped from, say, a bat or a monkey or something into people. I recently read a paper entitled, "What Do We Know About the Origin of COVID-19 3 years later?" It was put out by the National Institute of Health. And it ultimately says that the zoonotic explanation is best at this point, but it doesn't rule out the lab leak theory, and both theories have holes. But that's okay. My goal here isn't to talk about the truth of this. I want to talk about how do people justify their beliefs. One comment on the article in the New York Times that was detailing the evidence for the lab leak theory, one comment, it introduced a principle known as Occam's razor. Most of you are probably familiar with this idea, that among competing hypotheses that predict equally well, the one with the fewest assumptions should probably be selected. Or an easier formulation, the simplest explanation is usually the right one. The comment's author then went on to say that the simplest explanation for the coronavirus was clearly the lab leak theory, to which I responded, "That's funny. I thought the simplest explanation was that the virus had some sort of natural origin, just like other viruses that have been infecting life on Earth for hundreds of millions of years." Unfortunately, it's hard to see Occam's razor as a justification for a belief. At best, it's a heuristic or a methodological guideline. Simplicity does not guarantee correctness. For example, the geocentric model of the universe might have seemed simpler in ancient times, but was eventually supplanted by the more accurate heliocentric model, which requires math that wasn't previously known. However, I think this is probably how most people settle on beliefs. I'm going to incorporate new beliefs based on the narrative that seems simplest given the other things that I already believe. The narrative with the fewest additional assumptions. Now, I love science. Socrates rejected the notion of perception as knowledge partially because knowledge became subjective, but science leads to processes for repeatable perception. If you want to see a particular effect, then you only need to follow the correct steps. And it can be used to predict many things that can be observed by everyone. One might say that science is not knowledge, just as with the giraffes, we don't necessarily know why, and our narratives are incomplete, or maybe entirely wrong. But science seems like the best we have so far. Going back to my friend Sebastian and the climate change paper, he rejected the paper because he thought that the story in which the scientists were wrong was simpler than the story in which the scientists were correct. And he might be right. Extracting world climate data from ice? Really? Computer models that predict the climate when they can't even predict the weather? Of course, if Occam's razor can be used to prove anything, then it can also be used to disprove all of modern physics. There is nothing simple about quantum theory or general relativity. So I just have to accept that Sebastian is doing the best he can. We all are. Blessed be.
So this is our last chance to sing Building Bridges this month for our hymn of the month, The Round. I missed the last time we did this, so I think we're just going to do two parts, right? And number 1 here, number 2 over here. I will lead part 2, which will start at number 3, right?
This is all very complicated. We need Occam's razor for sure. In the book, Circle 3 is where the second group starts after the first group gets to that point.
And can we sing it through 2 times?
2 times, okay. Okay?
Please repeat after me as I extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. The warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Return now to the world and choose love. And tomorrow, choose love again. But before you do, Rod has yet another announcement.
With my wife Carolyn, part of the tech team that provides the sound system that magically sprouts up here every Sunday and gives us all the good things to listen to. But I wanted to thank Mandy and Jason, who are also part of our tech team, and this is going to be their last time doing it.